99% of the thoughts that were coming to my head at that time were not my voice. I wasn't decided to think. I mean, they were horrible.
Welcome back to the podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been it's been over a year since we last chatted, and I'm just curious, we're in this unique time right now with the pandemic and it's very atypical, but work and otherwise, what's been your focus for the last little bit?
Um, I've been working with my company. We've been relaunching our programs and some of our products, and that has taken a lot of time. And then in the summer, I traveled with my kids.
Well, that's nice. It sounds like a good balance. Where did you guys travel?
We went to Greece. We hopped around some of the Greek islands. It was really nice.
Was that the first time you guys had been there?
No, I love Greece. I go there as often as I can.
And do you find that traveling, is that somehow fit into your health and wellness, not routine, but your practices? Do you find that that is an important reset for you and seeing different parts of the world and how things operate? Is that helpful for you?
Well, I don't know how to look at it in a different way. This is the way it's been. I love it. You know, um, I do it for work. I do it for pleasure. I don't think of it as something that I do for my health, like taking a vitamin or, this is my life.
No, not specifically, something you have to fit into the schedule as something that's going to benefit your health. But when you do come back from a trip like that, do you feel revitalized and nourished in a different kind of way?
Definitely traveling, it nourishes me in a different kind of way, for sure.
Let's talk about detox. This is an area, you're a major leader, world leader in. And I'm just curious to start off. Let's talk about, life in the 21st century. We have so much going on, so much bombarding us on a day-to-day basis. What would you say are the biggest players? And this is going to lead into detox, but what are the biggest areas right now of toxins that are infiltrating our day-to-day lives?
I'll tell you in a bigger picture what I think is the problem with humanity, right? Because the human species is now talking about global warming, right? But the way I look at it is that the patient, the planet Earth, which is like a living organism that has rivers that are the arteries and that has forests that are the lungs and that has, animals running around that are the cells like red blood cells and white blood cells, right? And then it has tissues, forest, the grass, so this animal, the planet, has a fever. That's global warming. But fever is the symptom. It's the symptom of what? It's a symptom of the toxicity that we're living in that is affecting us in so many ways. And all the toxins that we are exposed to now through the air we breathe, the water we drink and shower with, the medications that we consume that are filled with toxic chemicals other than the active ingredients, the cosmetics we apply on our skin that end up in our bloodstream, but mostly through the food like products that we eat. We are at a time in which the human species has not encountered so many toxins ever, and toxins that are not just outside, they enter our bloodstream, they get absorbed into our system, and they start doing things, right? Now that comes attached to a different aspect of the problem, which is all these things that we are eating that are toxic, all these chemicals that we're putting to our food like products, also leaves us with a nutritional deficiency. A lot of people are overfed and undernourished because they eat a lot of stuff, but that stuff doesn't contain what the body really needs. So the body keeps on making you eat in the hopes that whatever it is that you really need will come in. So we're overfed, undernourished, inflamed, and overexposed to toxins. Now, incredibly, the human body has systems to deal with all of this. The detoxification system in the body, the detoxification system, is perfectly capable to deal with most of the toxins that we invented even in the last year. Somehow the liver knows how to do it. Now, there's only a few toxic chemicals, and those are important too, called the POPs, the persistent organic pollutants, that the liver doesn't know how to deal with. Like and like heavy metals, sometimes the body doesn't have the ability to eliminate. But mostly everything else it does. But it would be able to do it if it had the nutrients available for, manufacturing the enzymes in the liver, and it had the energetic availability, the energy available. But at a time where we are more exposed to chemicals than ever, our detoxification system is working weaker than ever, right? And there's many reasons why, right? But that is the crossroads that humanity finds itself in, and of course everybody's running around, feeling and complaining about the results of most of this. And we will waste our time and go to specialists and subspecialists and this and that, and they give us creams and medications, and they give us a pill for an ill, when it is my experience that if you learn how to create the conditions for your detoxification system to work optimally and support it nutritionally and otherwise, then most of the problems that we are suffering from either greatly improved or completely disappeared. This is what I see in my medical practice and what I've seen in my life, because this is what I discovered after I was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, depression, and severe allergies. And I was given 7 prescription medications, and I refused to take them and started studying and started looking into whatever I could find. But it wasn't until I found the concepts and practices of detoxification in the functional medicine lingo, from the functional medicine point of view, which functional medicine calls biotransformation and elimination, right? Because detox, everybody's talking about detox, but not a lot of people understand what detox is. Even this, fancy Harvard nutritionists who are interviewed about detox and says that it's bullcrap because the body is already knows what it has to do and it's doing it. And yeah, of course the body knows what it has to do and it's trying to do it, but it's only accomplishing it if it has the right conditions, the right nutrients, and the energy available, right? So understanding what the detoxification or biotransformation system is in the body, and what are the nutrient requirements and what are the other requirements, and then putting those to practice, it's incredible what you can do. I say that 60% of the people that come to see me for any kind of problem either greatly improve or completely resolve their problem before we even diagnose whatever it was, just by doing a sound, organized detoxification program.
Well, that was a great overview. I'm glad you covered all that. To dig a little bit deeper, it sounds like the first step and the foundation for all of this is digging into the diet and making sure we're eating a clean diet loaded with nutrients, and that's going to support the body's natural ability to detox. Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's one of the most accessible and common problems that humanity has today. that we're not eating foods, we're eating food-like products, devoid of nutrients. And when you switch to eating in a more natural way, all the systems in the body get happy, because all the systems in the body need certain nutrients. It's not just, you can't just eat for detox, you know. Eh, all the systems in the body are connected. The nervous system is intimately connected with the digestive system, and the detoxification system is intimately connected with the intestinal and the defense and repair system. So they're all really working and doing what they, or trying to do what they were designed to do, and they're all looking for the nutrients that they need in order to produce their enzymes and whatever it is that they're producing, right? And there's competition. So, and the body at all times has to determine, what is the most important thing for the survival this minute. The body doesn't plan too long ahead. What is important this minute? So it sacrifices things for this minute that later on could be a problem. Detoxification is one of them.
So when you're working with patients these days, there's so many different diets that are considered healthy depending on what expert you talk to. Is there a certain type of diet you recommend for people, or is it just about, eating real organic foods?
It depends. Listen, you're asking a big question, because everybody's different. Everybody comes with a different problem. Some people are going to have to really zone in into their diet in a way that it's almost almost impossible to do. Like I don't know if you've heard of the people that can't eat so many things and have such a limited diet. Some people have to do that, right? And for some people, and for the majority of people, really, it's a very simple thing. It's a very simple switch from eating food-like products from eating stuff that was made in factories that that uses some food as ingredient, from eating that kind of thing, which is what is contained in 90% of the real estate of a supermarket. 90% of the supermarket is selling you what? Stuff in boxes, in jars, in tubes, in cans, in bags, right? That's not food. So when you switch from eating that to eating the what's in the periphery of the supermarket, the vegetables, the fruits, the wild caught fish or wild game. So when you start eating those things as opposed to what's in the middle of the supermarket, things change dramatically, right? And then of course you can get a little, you can fine tune a little and determine, what extra things some people need in order to really help the body do what the body's trying to, but sometimes can't, because of this insane life that we're living.
And you talked about your personal health crisis when you were in medical school, and the depression, the allergies, the medications that you were prescribed but didn't end up taking. Would you say the biggest needle mover for you that allowed you to pull out of that and not go on the medications was changing your diet at that time?
Well, the thing is, I did go on some medications. I did try some stuff. I when I say I didn't go on medications, I didn't go on medications as a long-term solution or as a plan, right? But I did try medications. For example, I tried antidepressants, and what I noticed was that even though it took that edge of, you know, despair and self-destructive kind of thinking, it took that off. But it also took off the other end of the edge, yeah, the end where I where I was in awe of something or in love with something. So it took away the down, but it took away the up too, right? Not only that, it gave me dry mouth and a couple of other symptoms that side effects that I didn't like. So I stopped it. Right. I took medications for my irritable bowel syndrome, but each one of them also brought in a different side effect. And because I was already a doctor, I already knew that none of these pills were actually correcting anything. There, there was a something that wasn't working, that was expressing as a result the symptoms that I was suffering from. The medications that were given to me, I knew physiologically, biologically, medically, however you want to call it, I knew that they were not correcting anything. They were just suppressing stuff. They were just forcing a certain chemistry in my body, right? And I mean, I understood clearly that even though it helps a lot of people, with some stuff, that would be a trap for me that I would never get out of. So because because I saw it in my patients, and I didn't want to be accumulating medications for the next 10 years and end up with 15 pills a day, like so many Americans and people around the world. So that's why I looked for different solutions.
So, when you were able to get off those medications because you knew this wasn't the right path for you, what was the big needle mover at that time along your health journey that allowed you, the catalyst that allowed you to get off those meds and start feeling better?
I don't have a I don't have a pow event to tell you in terms of the catalyst, the needle mover for me to to um to stop medications and look for different solutions. I did have a desperate uh, search to understand and 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 relieve the torture that was my head at that time. Yeah, that kept on producing negative thoughts 99% of the time, despite the fact that I didn't want to think them. So I thought I was going crazy, because if I didn't want to think those thoughts, why were they there? Who was activating them? So the line between being normal and being possessed or hearing voices is very thin. We just don't know it. I was in the subway and I was listening to this person having a loud argument, and I was having the same argument, I mean, different argument, but the same type of thing, just silently in my head with my boss at that time. So I realized that we call these people crazy, but we're all crazy. We're all having voices in our heads. We just think somehow we think it's our voice, but 99% of the thoughts that were coming to my head at that time were not my voice. I wasn't decided to think. I mean, they were horrible. They were telling me how stupid I was and how fat I was and how what a loser I was. It was me telling me those things. I wasn't choosing to do that. It was just popping. So in a way, really, it's like I was possessed, but they were using my, my voice. So I didn't realize. But that's what's happening to everybody, right? As crazy as it sounds, most people are thinking all the time. They are not deciding their thoughts, and most people are identifying with their thoughts. So their thoughts are playing with their emotions, and that's how most people live all the time.
I know we
So
got in.
that was the catalyst for me. I mean, you may have asked that question, um, to expecting, maybe I found a book by this doctor or that doctor, right? But it wasn't like that.
Well, to be honest, I thought you might have went to the diet and talked about, having a radical shift in the way you were eating, and then you'd start, had started feeling better.
But that came later. I started already feeling better when I understood that I wasn't crazy, that this is the human experience, that pop, thoughts are popping in your head all day long. Most people just experiencing them like I'm thinking. If you ask somebody what's happening right now, they'll tell you I'm thinking, when the truth is that they're not thinking. Thoughts are just happening. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I totally get it. And I'm curious, we got to get into, since this is such a prevalent problem, and I know we covered this a little bit last time we chatted, but it is so important. I think it's important we get into it again. How did you go about handling that? So you explained that was the big shift for you, being able to start to decipher the fact that those thoughts were not you, and you started to be able to control them in a way.
No,
Talk about how okay, well talk about how you got hold of your mind again.
I didn't control them. Well, listen. First of all, the fact that I intellectually understood that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't possessed by voices, that this was just a construct and a habit of my mind. Because since I was little, they started teaching me how to talk from, Papa, Mama, Dada, Mama, from the beginning, everybody wanted me to talk, like everybody wants babies to talk, and they teach you to talk, and they teach you to read, and then you memorize stuff, and then, and what happens is, because we are not completely awake and present. We are a series of automatic stuff going on. Then it becomes a whole thing on its own, and it's always associating and producing thoughts, and sometimes you go about, and I don't know, a squirrel jumps from a tree, and then a thought appears of your father when you were 12 years old. You don't even put together that the squirrel was what you know triggered in your unconscious mind. But that the thought appeared. How, why, you know it's all a little bit of a mess, like an entangled thing, of connections and triggers and things, right? But the moment that I understood that was a huge relief. I said, okay, yeah, I'm still suffering because I'm still experiencing those thoughts, but I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I say, okay, fine. There's a way to not identify with them so much, and there's a way to not to witness them without them playing with your fight or flight reaction, you know so what I'm saying is, when was having the discussion with my boss, I was having tachycardia and high blood pressure, like I was about to fight with him. It was in my head, but I was having the same reaction as I was to either fight or flight, right? So that is thought grabbing you, taking your attention into it, making you identify with it, or you identifying with it, and therefore it's playing with you, right? When I realized that, and I understood that, one of the solutions was meditation, and and that as the practice to become present. And then I started learning tricks to become present more often. And it's been 25 years or more since I've started learning these things, and I can tell you right now, my mind still produces thoughts, maybe at the same rate as before, but now I have developed the ability to look at them, to witness them, without them completely grabbing me. Of course, at times they do. I'm hard. I'm a hot-blooded Latin, and when emotions come up, that's the hardest to not to identify with thoughts, and it happens to me a lot. But compared to what I was describing to you before, You know, I've come a long way. I understand now that these are not thoughts that I am willingly fabricating. You know, I understand also that I can redirect my attention into the present, and when I do that, the pull of those automatic negative thoughts is much less, right? Because I'm redirecting willingly my attention somewhere else, and really our experience is determined by where our attention goes. Attention is flowing all the time. There is no stopping attention. It's like blood. Now, the easiest and less resistant way of attention flowing is into thought, because thought is kind of ethereal, and right. So attention is, for most people, is flowing into thought, right? But you can redirect it, for example, into your body. Like if we're talking right now, and I think we did this exercise the last time we spoke. As we speak, we put some of our attention in our bodies. Right now, I'm doing it. I'm putting some of my attention on my butt, touching my chair. I'm putting some of my attention on my left foot, which is touching the ground. My right leg is crossed over my left leg, so my right foot is not touching the ground, but it's touching the cable to which my iPhone is connected. So see, I am aware of everything that's happening inside my body right now. As my feet and my butt are only in the present. And when I put my attention there, I'm becoming more present. And there's less attention left to go into this into these thoughts, into these, you know, um, thoughts that are just there waiting for your attention to splash on them, you know.
And do you find, Alejandro, the more you practice putting your attention, through meditation or through the exercise you just took us through in different areas of the body, does it start to become subconscious? Like, is it a practice now that you have to, use your conscious mind to bring attention to the body, for example, or does that kind of just happen now to you throughout the day because you've practiced that as a habit and skill?
It's a really good question. um, in a way, it's like driving a bicycle. You know, my kid is 9, and only a couple of years ago she started driving a bicycle, and she had to pay a lot of attention to, to everything, and look, and now it's just an automatic thing that her body does on her own, right? It is kind of like that, but not, because I still have to remember, right, and 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 activate that pathway. Like, for example, the last minute that I've been talking to you, I haven't been feeling my feet. And it is obvious even in the way I speak, because I'm less eloquent when I'm not feeling my feet. Because I go, you saw me go like this and go into my head. And, you know, the moment that I become really fully present, like, for example, right now I am feeling my feet, I'm feeling my butt, I'm feeling my legs. And at that times, those are the times where just whatever I need to express just comes flowing out of me. I don't even need to think about it very much. I realize that even I sound better. I'm clearer with what I want to communicate when I become present. You know, so the, there is an automaticity to it in a way, but still you have to turn it on, right? And the automaticity is more in terms of remembering. I remember more often than I'm not present. You know.
And besides the presence piece, which sounds like it's the biggest piece of, reigning control again over those thoughts, again, you mentioned you're not perfect. It still happens, but you're in a whole nother place than you were back when you're in med school and struggling with this. What other tools have been helpful for you over the years to, we can use the word detox in, an arbitrary sense, but to detox your mind and to think your best and to be your best self day in, day out?
The one that I mentioned is the most important one, and it's the one that occupies most of my time and and practice and attention. You know, it's it's a constant thing, becoming present. It's a moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. No, and sometimes it's boring, you know. 'Cause I keep talking to you, I keep feeding my feed. So, but that's really the most important one in terms of becoming present. Yes, I like prayer more and more, even though I'm not sure that I even know how to pray. Um, Spending time with my children does that to me. Yeah,
I know you've experimented and you're a fan of different plant medicines. I'm curious if that fits into this whole mental health piece and changing the way you think day in, day out.
the only reasons and the only times when I use plant medicines, and I shouldn't say the only because then I would be lying, but most of the times that I used plant medicines was as medicines. It wasn't just exploring, or I mean, I did exploration also, you know, to see what happens, to see what I feel. But the the usage of them for me was more something that I found on the way to trying to heal something, right, in myself. And yes, of course, every single experience of any plant or animal medicine that I've ever tried has left me with something.
Can you share a story of a specific experience you've had with plant medicine that has left you with an epiphany that has really defined who you are today and how you operate?
You know, I'm not sure if you're looking for a fantastical story, right? But it's in the subtle things, in the most in the simplest things that that plant medicines, for example, helped me and changed me, right? I'll tell you one time. I I have a daughter with her mom is a very very good friend of mine, and and she also has kids with another person. So my daughter has a step brother, and I love this kid as my kid. Actually, she has two step brothers and a stepsister, and I love all of them as my kid. But when I met this little one, he was kind of a baby. So you know I also raised him, and and there was a time when I broke up with his mom, and I stopped seeing him for a while, and it was during a ayahuasca session that that he appeared to me, or his spirit, or was it my imagination, or whatever it was. But what he said to me at that time made me understand, you know, that he was such a little a little person at that time, that he couldn't possibly realize what was going on, and he was feeling it as I abandoned him. So that was a huge shift for me in the way that I thought of him, and my relationship with him, and everything else that was going on between his mom and I, and my daughter, you know. So yes, I have many stories like that. They may be a little boring for you.
No, I really appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty and vulnerability, and I think it is definitely helpful just to hear what you went through there. I'm curious, do you find the plant medicines are something that you need to continue to come back to again and again? Or you've had kind of a phase of your life where you've delved into that, learned a lot, and now you've kind of, you know, not went beyond that, but like you've taken what you've needed from those experiences into day-to-day life and now you don't really need to go there?
I don't think about it that way. If you have a headache, you take aspirin, and you hope you never need it again. It's not like, oh, you take aspirin because you have a headache, the headache resolved, and you keep on taking aspirin for the rest of your life. And for me, medicines are like that. Should I need them? I'd use them in a minute.
It's a tool now that you have in your back pocket.
Why? It's not in my back pocket because a lot of them are illegal. But yes, it's a tool that I search and I have a nice Rolodex of people that understand these things and use these things and have experience with these things. And not only I use them for myself, but I sometimes inform people about them so they can do their research and maybe benefit just like I did.
And as somebody who has experienced, a wide array of these different plant medicines, and you're somebody, you mentioned meditation earlier, I'm curious if you've ever tried holotropic breathing. What I'm getting at with all this is, have you ever had similar type experiences as you've had with the plant medicines from things like meditation, or if you've done holotropic breathing or something else?
There was a time that I was obsessed with the work of Stanislav Grof and holotropic breathing. But and as much as I tried, I never really had a profound experience with it. I do know people that do have. I even have a really good friend who's a breathwork therapist, and I trust him, and he tells me the profound experiences that people have with it, right? But it didn't work for me, which doesn't mean anything. Um, but the most profound experience that I had that wasn't even uh, that 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 even my strongest ayahuasca experience doesn't even compare to was when an enlightened being that I met slapped me on my chest. And I don't know what she did, but she put me in a state that no drug has ever done, no orgasm, no nothing, no great meal, not even the birth of my kids ever put me in that state, right? Which is what I understand now as a sneak preview of what could be, what enlightenment is. And enlightenment is a tricky word, and especially now with the with the whole lit conversation, and right. But that experience was, I don't know, 100, 1,000, 10,000 times stronger than any plant or drug I've ever took.
You did go into the details of that story last time we chatted, so we won't go all the way back into hashing all that out. If people want to listen, they can go back and listen to our other conversation. But I am curious, have you ever encountered another being like that? And have you ever had another experience of that sort?
I've encountered beings like that, right? Both real and fake, right? Beings that have sometimes millions of followers, and I've had very interesting experiences. But I've never had that kind of experience. It was as if that person slapped me on the chest and intentionally, willingly. It was something that she actually decided to do. Give me a sneak preview of what's possible for my existence. That's how I understand it.
And since you mentioned you're somebody who has, encountered a number of people with this ability, this enlightenment, I'm just curious if I'm sure you've contemplated it a lot. It was such a profound experience that impacted you in such a tremendous way. What is it about these people that get to that level? Is it something they're born with? Is there a certain, you know, certain work that they've gone through in life to get to that point? I'm just curious since you're somebody who's, knowledgeable in this area and it's not something I'm familiar with.
I'm not knowledgeable, but I'm very curious. And I read a lot and I study a lot and I'm interested in this. And my understanding is that this state, the state of enlightenment, the state of pure presence, is really the birthright of humans. It's actually the real reason that we are here. We are here as an organism that transforms energies from the air we breathe, from the impressions we get, from the food we eat, goes into metabolism, and it produces what? Your experience of life. And the experience that you experience is actually something that the universe needs. And the universe really, what it needs is what the possibility is for humans, which is to be fully present. And when there's people that are fully present in that way, they make history. Jesus Christ, the Buddha, Mohammed. I mean, you name it. Now, some of them don't make history like that because there are enlightened beings, in my understanding, that are simple people that are gardeners and chefs and doctors and whatever. Sometimes they don't even know they're enlightened. I have a friend who I think is enlightened. His name is Jimmy. I don't think he knows he's enlightened, but wherever he goes, people feel it. Everybody said, "Oh my God, it's such a pleasure just to have him around." People flock to him. You just want to sit. It's like a log of fire in the snow. You want to go and gather close. And feel the heat, right? Um, Listen, we talk about it in a regular life. Oh, that guy, yeah, he has a lot of presence. And we confuse it as charisma or this is something that's a little confusing, right? Um, the person that explains it the best for me, the book that really gave me the tools to think about states of being, attention, and these things, right? Is a book called In Search of the Miraculous by an author called Ouspensky, Peter Demianovich Ouspensky, a Russian philosopher, mathematician, physicist who encountered a teacher called Gurdjieff. And in this book, he describes the teachings of Gurdjieff. And the teachings of Gurdjieff are really interesting for Western minds, for scientific minds, because it brings down all these ethereal or spiritual concepts but really back down into mathematical equations. I mean, it's unbelievable, and that's where I get these understandings from.
And now that you've had this taste of enlightenment in your past, is that something that is part of your, day-to-day mission, looking for that, looking for yourself to become more enlightened or looking for other enlightened beings and surrounding yourself with them? Has that changed your trajectory in that way?
Yeah, yeah, obviously, obviously made me choose my company differently and be differently myself, you know. And it helped me a lot. It helped me. We all want to be nice and we all want to be kind and we all want to be helpful. I think I think even the most selfish people have that impulse to to be a part of something better and bigger and to be useful and necessary and right. So all these things gave me better tools to become that, you know, or I'm in the process, of course.
Let's come back to detox, how we opened up this conversation and, you know, talk about you mentioned the POPs and the heavy metals. Let's get into some of the specifics. We talked about how diet was the biggest factor when it comes to detox, but let's talk about what people specifically, what their bodies are being infiltrated with these days on a toxic level.
So when you breathe air, you're breathing, depending on where you are, a certain level of cyanide. Every city, the smoke from the cars and factories, there's all kinds of toxins, including cyanide, and in the air, and I don't know if you know who Zach Bush is, but he talks about how the incidence of COVID is is higher in cities where the particles are the most in the air, many of those which contain cyanide, and he makes the connection of respiratory infections to the air we breathe and in which city we are. Fascinating stuff. The water we drink and shower with, every every city supplies water to the residents, and this water comes in pipes that are old, that are lead and copper and all kinds of stuff. And then and this water also comes from places where it's collected through the rain, and the rain really decants all the pollution in the air, and then people are taking medications and drugs and they're peeing them, and that is also somehow makes it into the city supplied water. And by the time you open your tap, there's hundreds of chemicals that are known to cause cancer, infertility, and many other problems, right? Inflammation, gut damage. So the air, the water we breathe and we drink and shower with, the medications we use. I mean, everybody's taking medications, and when you look at it, only 10% of them are the active ingredients. Just take a look at your Advil. It's a little bit of ibuprofen, and then excipients and coloring agents and this and that, and solubility thing. I mean, it's 90% of the stuff that is actually toxic. And then you have the cosmetics that you use, and then you have the the materials with which we build our homes, and which we paint our homes, and then which we furnish our homes, and the cleaning products with which we clean our homes, and that's all full of toxins. For example, you spend a third of your life sleeping, and if you're lucky, and so you're on your mattress so much of your life. And your mattress, if you live in America, 90% chance or more that it was treated with fire retardant that will off gas these horrible chemicals for the rest of their existence. So you're breathing that all night, right? I write about it in my latest book, Clean 7, how you wake up in the morning and you've been breathing these fire retardants, and then you're barefoot, and you slide down and you're touching the floor, and your floor has been cleaned with waxing with wax for your hardwood floors, and your hardwood floors had been treated with all kinds of things. So already you're touching that, and it's coming in through your feet, and you go to the bathroom and you splash your face with water. The water has medications and all kinds of toxins. And then you shower, and then you brush your teeth, and your toothpaste is foaming. You know how it makes a foam. Did you see that your laundry detergent also makes a foam? You know that the chemical they use for the laundry detergent and your toothpaste is the same. It's SLS. It's a foaming agent. There is no function for the foam to clean your teeth better. It's not something that is that. It's just so that you think that you have soap in your mouth. So another chemical, and then you put deodorant with aluminum, and by the time you come to your kitchen to have your breakfast, you've already been exposed to, in a regular household in the United States, to more than 1,500 chemicals that are known to cause problems, and many more that are not known but may well be. How do we know? And sometimes some chemicals that are known to be fine maybe are not fine in combination with other chemicals that are known to be fine. So by the time you left your house, you've consumed it, and then of course breakfast with in a typical breakfast in an American home with cereal. What is cereal? I mean, what is it? It's insane. Who invented it? For why? What are we doing to ourselves? And so you leave your house and you get into your car, and your car, smells good because you just bought it. Oh, those are BPFs and BPAs and phthalates that you're breathing, and you're sipping water all day long from your bottle, your water bottle that Americans carry like it's their appendix. And I say Americans because this is where this water craziness started, and then we exported it to the rest of the world. But everybody has a water bottle. Nature didn't invent animals with a water container attached to them. Animals are in the wild. Sometimes they don't drink water for 2, 3 days. So we are a little bit off, and the list of chemicals goes on and on. I mean, you want to be specific. There's thousands and thousands of chemicals that we're exposed to day in, day out.
Coming back to the water piece, just to clarify there, what kind of water do you drink and how often do you drink it? Because, you made it sound like you might go periods of time without water. And then obviously we know all the different toxins and things that can be in the water. So I'm curious how you go about that if you're not somebody that carries a
I drink.
bottle.
I drink. I have an incredible water system that catches the water as soon as it comes into to my property, and it clears it of everything. It's huge. I have it here at the entrance of my house, and then it goes it goes into another water system in my kitchen that further purifies the water and then remineralizes it so that I drink really really good water, and I use it for cooking. But even in my garden, because I have a lot of plants that are edible, even in my garden the water is filtered, right? And then I have another one in my pool, with an ozone machine that is injecting ozone all day into my pool so that I can avoid chlorine. So that's what I do with my water. And I drink bottled water when I'm not in my house, or many times even in my house. I like sparkling water. Not the best, not the healthiest, but I like it and I drink it. Now, when I say that nature created animals to exist without water for 2, 3 days, that's animals that live in the wild that are not exposed to so many chemicals. And for us, going without water for 2, 3 days, like animals in the wild, is not okay, because we are not in that situation. We are full of chemicals. We need to be eliminating. So water is important, but not in the way that we do it. Like
We're in a cesspool of chemicals, which you've broken down nicely for us. But what I'm curious about then is these foreign chemicals, the body's not, a lot of them, the body hasn't had to deal with throughout our evolution. And this is a relatively new thing where we're being bombarded by so many different things. And like you said, it's very complex because we don't even know how necessarily all of them one by one are interacting with our body, but let alone when we start combining different ones. And it just creates basically an infinite number of different things that we're bombarded with. So, what I'm curious about, going really granular, is how does our body handle that? Like, what kind of response when something foreign like that comes into the body? What protective mechanisms arise and help, you know, ward off all this stuff coming in?
so normally, if things were working fine, whatever chemical would circulate in the blood, when it passes through the liver, it will be detected. The liver with the liver cells would spit their enzymes that would break down the molecular composition, and it would take away some atoms and add some other atoms, which would do two things. One of them is render the molecule non-toxic, and the second one is biotransform it from being only lipophilic, only dissolvable in fat, to being also dissolvable in water, because the only way the body can eliminate stuff is through water, sweat, feces, urine, right? So it needs to transform these things from lipo into hydrophilic, right? So this is what normally happens. Now, when there's not enough nutrients for the body to make enzymes, or there's simply too many toxic molecules and the body's working but it cannot catch up, they will continue to circulate, right? And the body detects the irritability. Now, different toxins irritate in different ways. Some of them are oxidants, some of them block certain receptors, some of them excite certain receptors, some of them attach themselves to certain molecules that don't let them in turn be a part of their function, whatever that is, right? So, but the body is incredibly wise, and as it detects these things, two things happen. If they're water soluble, the body will surround them with mucus. If they're only fat soluble, the body will surround them with fat. Or you can say it in a different way. These things will get dissolved in mucus or in fat. But the thing is, it's not only the fat that's already there. When the body detects a toxic load of lipophilic exotoxins, the body will turn its metabolism into generating and retaining fat, because now it knows that fat is the buffer, and it needs more. And this is one of the reasons for obesity that we don't talk about in the modern world. But really, the body is everybody in the planet is turning obese, and it's not just because they're eating a lot. It's also because we're so toxic that the organism of this species is saying we need more fat to survive.
We have these organs that, and systems in our body that are meant to deal with toxins. But since things are so radical and so atypical, are there certain things we can do these days, or supplements we can take to facilitate our organs of detox to work optimally?
Did you read my book?
I did. Clean 7.
No, clean.
I haven't read Clean. I've read Clean 7.
Clean gut, clean seven. That's what I talk about in my books. I
Well, let's talk about it here.
that's what I talk about in my books. That we have a detox system. What it is, I describe in it what it is, how it works, and how you can support it. Right? And yes, there are foods that hinder the detoxification system, and there are foods that support the detoxification system. The five big groups that hinder detoxification are sugar, alcohol, coffee, dairy, and gluten, right? And the ones that support detoxification are mostly vegetables and fruits, right? And the more colorful, the more detoxification power they have. So that's kind of like a big way of looking at it, right? Uh, uh, yeah.
You mentioned coffee there being one of the foods that's, hindering our detox. Let's just end on that and talk more about why that is and what's happening there.
There's two main reasons why coffee is hindering not only detox but people. One of them is because coffee, the plant, is one of the most irrigated crops in the world because of its vulnerability to pests and insects and stuff. So regular coffee is loaded with toxic chemicals. So if you are going to drink coffee, do yourself a favor and invest in organic coffee, right? That's one reason. The second reason is because coffee is a very strong stimulant, and a lot of people go from drinking coffee to depending on coffee. So I know so many people that tell me that without their coffee in the morning they cannot function, and those are the people that are coffee dependent to function. That's not good. Any time that you depend on something foreign, a foreign substance, to function, it doesn't work. Of course, you need foreign stuff to function. You need food, and you need water, right? And you need oxygen. That's all foreign, and you need it to function. But coffee is just a very powerful stimulant that people that depend on it are not doing as well as the people that don't depend on it.
And for yourself, when it comes to coffee consumption, do you ever have a clean cup of organic coffee?
I just don't like the taste, so I don't drink coffee, but just because I don't like the taste, not for any other reason.
Are you a big tea drinker?
I started to drink tea in the past couple of years, and I love it. Yeah,
What are a couple of your favorites?
my all-time favorite is tulsi rose tea from organic India, and my second favorite is the hibiscus tulsi hibiscus from organic India.
Which is a company that you're an investor in, correct?
I'm not an investor, and I'm the medical director of, and they are an investor in my company.
Got it.
But I don't say that this is my favorite tea because they're investors. They're actually investors in my company because it's my favorite tea. And so it started the other way around. I met the company, I became a huge fan, and then I had the honor of them asking me to be their medical director.
Nice. Yeah, we talked quite extensively about Tulsi last time as well, and I'm a big fan too. It's one that you can definitely feel the relaxing effect come over you when you're sipping on it. All right, Alejandro, I know you got to leave, so we'll part ways here. Other than listeners getting a copy, I know your latest book is Clean 7. You have a whole array of books. We'll link them up in the show notes. But how can people connect with you after the show?
Instagram is the easiest these days, right? Dr. Alejandro Junger, Dr. Alejandro Junger.
I'll link it up in the show notes as well. Thank you, Alejandro.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Take care.
Bye.